Have you or someone you know ever been sent to a boot camp for troubled teens? If so, what are your experiences? I had a friend from church who was sent to one of those pray away the gay camps after he came out to his folks. Luckily for him, it wasn't one of the bad ones, a lot of focus on living a godly life, and he told me there was very little discussion of homosexuality. Mostly it was just outdoor stuff and Bible study. It sounded more like the church camps we had been to together growing up. He did say it was pretty stupid to send a gay horny teenager to a camp filled with other gay horny teenagers. He seemed pretty unperturbed by the whole thing, although he was mad at his folks for a long time and went to live with his brother for the rest of high school. Thanks to his experience, I didn't think the anti-gay camps sounded so bad until I was informed of just how awful they can be. My aunt sent my nephew to one for what was supposed to be like 3 months. They sent him back after 2 weeks because he refused to cooperate. I guess they can handle kids getting violent, but they can't handle a kid saying no and refusing to do anything. Late edit, he wasn't even a bad kid. He just liked to smoke pot and chase girls instead of studying. My brother got sent to a very strict boarding school for troubled youth. You started with nothing, not even shoes, and you can level up for more privileges. The first one he went to was near Mexico, but it was shut down once they found they were beating the kids. Then he went to one in one of the middle of the country states. That combined with my parents' efforts to keep him out of legal trouble, he lives a good life, but he's no longer in contact with the family. Very bitter about it, but the family is still abusive, so I don't blame him. I did. I was 16 and not doing well in high school. Wasn't a super bad kid, no criminal record, just had very little interest in listening to anyone with authority. I dropped out of high school and went to a 6-month resident program. Nearly every state has them. They are called the Challenge Academy. Very strict, lots of physical activity. Other than a 10-minute phone call on Sunday and letters, no contact with the outside world. No TV, newspapers, magazines, internet, socializing, etc. I learned a lot there. They try and teach you things like self-respect, reliance, confidence, responsibility, stuff like that. After that I joined the Navy as a photographer, probably one of the best gigs you can get. Got out, got a degree at a pretty solid state university, and now have a federal job. Didn't turn out so bad. Going there was probably one of the best choices I made in hindsight. Sure didn't feel like it at the time. A friend's boyfriend got sent to a religious one junior year. He said it was for weed, but who knows. He came home on a day pass after a few months and immediately ran away. He hid in his girlfriend's barn for a few days and then hitchhiked out of town. When I left town 10 years later, no one had heard from him. My brother he got much worse. His temperament changed from being slightly perturbed to very angry at the world. He made some friends though. My friend was sent to one her senior year of high school. It seemed to be good for her. She seemed to be clean for the first time in years. When she returned, her aunt, who raised her, told her she could only choose between enlisting and moving back with her prostitute, drug addict mother. She wanted to go to college, not enlist, so she was forced to move back with her mom. We don't talk much anymore, but from Facebook and news stories I know she's addicted to meth, was an accomplice in a bank robbery, and is dating a man 20 years older than her. It wasn't a boot camp, but when I was 15 or 16 my mom put me in some kind of scared straight program that the local sheriffs hosted. I had bad grades, but I was also taking classes at community college and getting A's, no criminal record, worked, paid rent. I really don't know why she thought I should to go to this thing. It was a 3 or 4 day long thing. They took us to juvie, which most of the other kids in the program had been in before. They took us to the county lockup, where some inmates told us about how shitty their lives are. They took us to the county hospital to show us homeless people and junkies, and they took us to the coroner's offices to show us dead people, all of whom presumably had OD'd or died in some bad way. They also showed us some dare videos and some red asphalt type videos about why we shouldn't drink and drive. I generally challenged authority, but had a healthy respect for people who were just doing their job. So when some sheriff kept telling me to get clean about my drug usage and drinking, after I had told him a million times I didn't, and still don't, do drugs and I didn't drink at the time, I asked him if I could try some heroin, so I would know what not to do. Got me a timeout. I also asked if they could page my uncle when we were in the county lockup. They thought I was being a smartass, but my uncle was actually there at the time. I had visited him a few weeks before. Anyhow, I did enjoy parts of it, mostly the coroner's bureau stuff. I made a friend there who was in and out of juvie, and didn't even go to my school. Last time I heard about him, he had shot and killed someone during an armed robbery, and was looking at life in a big boy jail. So really it just exposed me to people I shouldn't have been hanging out with, taught me how to do drugs by showing me a video of people doing drugs, and I missed out on 4 days of school, further impacting my poor grades. Cousin was sent to a military academy, basically a boarding school for kids with discipline problems. He's in his 40s now, and has been in prison multiple times. So that didn't really work out. So I was sent to a place called Mount Carmel in Wyoming. They have since been shut down for doing a whole bunch of illegal stuff. You can Google them. I was there for 6 months, and the only way I was able to leave is that after 6 months, one of the staff, during a supervised phone call, allowed me to tell the truth to my parents about what was going on. Prior to that they screened any letters I sent, so I wasn't able to explain to them what was really going on. The parents plus the state paid this place per boy per day, so it was in their interest to keep us there. Once I explained to my dad what had happened, since I got there, he told me he would be there the following Monday to get me. We lived in Cap and I was in this place. There's way too much to type here about how that place operated, the stuff that went on, but I'm happy to answer questions. One crazy thing is that the week I got there, 3 boys stuck shovels to a staff member's head and tried to escape. Each of them are serving life in white currently. I heard 3 80-year sentences each, and rightfully so, because that's awful. I was 15 when I went, but I knew guys there who were 18 over 19 because staff called their parents and said if their parents flew them home / gave them money to get home, their kids would end up doing the same stuff. They pretty much exploited the parents' fear of not keeping their kids safe. That being said, these places are certainly not all bad, and I'm sure a bunch of them do a lot of good for teenagers / their families. Also, if anyone here is familiar with where I was, who knows small word, that staff member was fired right after I left, because I'm sure they figured out he let me tell my parents what was going on. I've always wanted to thank him for what he did. He knew shit was not right but told me if he tried to do anything they would fire him instantly. He was a major lifesaver. I wish I could find him now. I never knew his last name because we called all the staff Mr. First name. His name was Mr. Scotty. Great guy. The entire reason I got on Reddit was to expose the horrific treatment facility my parents sent me to when I was 17. My post is archived, but received a lot of attention from parents and recovering troubled teen industry friends afterwards. When you search Eva Carlston Academy on Google, it used to be one of the top hits. I've literally never been more proud of something, because there was absolutely no info on the place prior to that post. It's an amateur and enraged piece of writing, but it's definitely worth a read if you want a raw inside look on what those kinds of programs are like. My goal is to raise awareness around this entire industry so that more children will be safe from the abuse and destruction. My brother went when I was in high school. I was in 9th grade, so he was 17 at the time. My uncle and bake weed cookies and bring them up to him once a month and never got caught for it. We'd always have a picnic when we went to visit. Edited. I didn't help bake the cookies. I just went to visit along W/uncle. IDK about the rest of his experiences, but it must not have done any good. He's the biggest fuck up ever. At age 32, dude has 4 kids, doesn't support 2 of them, multiple divorces, and can't keep a job worth a fuck. My brother went into boot camp. He was a very troubled kid. The only crimes he was ever arrested for were assaults. He ended up killing his 3 roommates and taking a college dorm hostage with his ex-girlfriend and her roommates in there. He wanted to kill her, but just shot her in the foot before getting shot and killed by police. This is background. He had been arrested many times for assault and they always put him on probation. After the third or fourth time they decided they would try boot camp. He excelled there. It wasn't long before he was the platoon leader and in a position of control of the others. He was the one always making sure guys followed through with chores, wake-ups, part, and whatever else. He did so well that his probation was cut short. After he got out, he came back home with a goal to join the Air Force. 3 months later he is arrested again for viciously assaulting someone. Because he wasn't on probation, they couldn't just put him in jail, so they put him in outward bound. They take troubled kids out in the forest and teach them to live off the land. It's basically forest survival a la Bear Grylls, without the camera crew, with only enough safety net that they don't die. What it really is doing is teaching future fugitives how to avoid the police and survive in nature. Once again he excelled and graduated top of his class in a leadership role. He is around 17 at this point. He gets out and they don't take away his probation this time. He is mad but deals with it. One night a few months later he sees a random Egyptian dude walking around our town, extremely small so we don't get a lot of foreigners here, and attacks him. He beats the holy shit out of the guy, breaks a bottle over his face, and threatens to kill him all while yelling racial slurs. So he is arrested and charged with a hate crime. Sentenced to 3 years in juvenile hall. He served 1, was out 5 to 6 months when the killing happened. Conclusion I later remember reading that boot camps fell out of favor due to lack of efficacy for rehabilitation. The people that excelled were people that used the power structure to victimize others, as it turns out later happened with my brother. Several guys came forward after his death saying they feared for their lives with him due to threats and intimidation. I know there were some that got benefit out of it, but some people can't be saved. Apologies for the length, but I apparently needed to get this out. Summer of 2001, I was starting to act like a real shit. At around 11 o'clock p.m. one night my mom barges in my room with these 2 strangers, an older couple, and informs me I need to go with them. I put up quite a fight until the older gentleman pulled out a pair of handcuffs and basically explained that we could do this the easy way or the hard way. I begrudgingly got in the car with them. My mom had somehow packed some of my belongings up that were already in the back seat, as my initial thought was that my mom was sending me to a mental hospital to try to get me under control, which I really wasn't all that upset about. Fast forward a couple hours, I've fallen asleep in the back seat and wake up in Mexico. Yep, Mexico. I spent the next 31 days starving, watching other girls get physically assaulted. The guy Miguel who ran the place had told me that all of our parents had signed over 90% custody to the camp, not sure if that's even a thing. And being forced to walk laps on this track for hours upon hours a day, listen to AA audio tapes, then complete worksheets on what we'd listened to, and basically living in hell. When I was finally released, my parents were late at the border and I totally thought it was some cruel joke about going home, and they were going to take me back to the camp. I got home and weighed about 88 lbs, started at probably 125 lbs, and had a huge scar on my chin from being forced to lay face down in the sand/gravel while a woman sat on the back of my head. I ended up running away a few months later, got addicted to cocaine, acted like a porn star, and had a very strained relationship with my mother for years. When I turned 18 I cleaned my life up and reconnected with my mom, and today I'm 31 now. That woman is my best fucking friend on this planet. It's really hard to talk to her about the camp because she basically starts crying and apologizing. She claims she thought I was so out of control I was going to die and had specifically picked the Mexico camp because it had the shortest stay and she wanted me back home as soon as possible. I still think about that place often and actually looked it up a couple months ago and found out the place apparently closed not too long after my stay, and the couple who ran the place were arrested.